In this video, I'm going to be talking to Kareen, who's the social work mentor. She is a manager and a social worker in children's services, and she's going to be answering the question that was put forward by one of my subscribers about what the difference is between adults and children's assessments in social work. So I did a bit of Googling because I'm an adult social worker, and obviously you're a children's social worker, and I've written some bullet points of things that I found from my research online, and I just want to see what you think about these points,
Okay.
and we can elaborate. So it says that children's social work assessments are often more thorough and in-depth examination of the child's family and social environment, because the family and social environment can have a significant impact on the child's development and well-being. So I think it's about the importance of that first developmental stage, I suppose, whereas with adults, you're thinking about the life course and how you sometimes think about how those early things have impacted, and you have to do that in order to think, in a trauma-informed way, for example, or thinking about the person as a whole. But I would say that for a child, you really think about that environment as well, and you pull in more professionals, so teachers and doctors, whereas with social work with adults, it's a different group of professionals. Often it's maybe health professionals or therapy staff. I just wondered what you'd think about that.
I'd agree. And I think I'd add, for children's assessments, is a holistic assessment. I think that's the best way to describe it. You want to get a whole picture of what's happened for that child. So you want to understand around the child and their own development needs, but you also want to understand about, exactly as you said, what's happened in that child's environment. We want to know more about the parent's capacity to care for that child's basic care needs, to provide them with stability, stimulation. So it's a really holistic assessment in trying to find out in an in-depth way what's gone on for that child now in their history, and therefore what do you think is likely to happen in their future.
Yeah, I think that's the case, isn't it? And I think the difference is, when an adult has the ability to express themselves and explain, they can sort of narrate their own experiences, can't they, and give you a sense of their identity and what's important to them. But for a child, they may be very young and they're not able to express that. So it's about how you find that information in a different way, I suppose.
Absolutely, and that's where drawing on the other professional network is so important, whether it's teachers, whether it's mental health services, whether it's health, just to get a real picture. And of course, we always want to speak to children alone and gain their own views. But like you said, I mean, we work with from the unborn children up until 18. So not every child is going to be able to verbally share their experiences. So we also rely a lot on observation as well with assessments.
Observation. And I remember from my training as well that sometimes you have to think about activities that you can play, like the use of play and things like that, and different ways to engage with children. And I know with adults, I sometimes use pictures and things like that and different tools, but I suppose it'd be more so with children, really.
Yes. And funny enough, I was speaking to someone, I can't remember an adult social worker today, and we were talking a little bit similarly about the difference. And one thing she mentioned was the fact that with adults social work, her experience is that, because she was in children's and moved to adults, her experience is that adults want that service, so they're more willing to engage with her. Whereas I guess with children's services, more often than not, I think I could say fairly, families don't want that assessment. So working through that barrier of engagement is another thing that we deal with quite a bit.
I can imagine, because I think with adults, there's a big emphasis on promoting independence, people having choice, well-being, and I know that a lot of it crosses over, but I think it's just those perceptions and also people's fear around the worst case scenario of what can happen, if things aren't going well with social work intervention. And I think that that could be a big barrier. And I think as well, obviously with the media and different influences on view of social work in society, things can be distorted as well, and it can impact on people's ability to trust and feel confident and comfortable
Yeah, I agree.
engaging with those. Yeah.
Perfect.
Right. So in terms of adults and children's, I think there is overlap, and I do think it's important to be aware of the legislation for both, because with adult services, I know that I've been involved with families where there have been children in the home, and you have to be aware of sort of your role to safeguard people, and also to act appropriately if you do see concerns, or just to really take a whole family approach. And I'm sure that if you had concerns about an adult that may have care and support needs, it'd be the same. You'd think about your knowledge of the Care Act, and vice versa. We'd have to refer appropriately, wouldn't we?
Absolutely, I'd agree. There is so much overlap, because of course the children we are working with have parents, they have carers, and sometimes those parents have complex needs of their own. So having that knowledge of the Care Act, services that the adults you're working with may be entitled to is so important, so that you can refer. You may not be the expert in that area, but having that knowledge is important so that you can then refer to a service who can better support that person.
Yeah, and I think on the whole, the principles around promoting well-being and taking a strengths-based approach, that's just the same for both, isn't it? Like
Absolutely.
our values are the same. It's kind of like everything in social work. You get used to one area of practice, but your skills are transferable, definitely.
I completely agree. I completely agree. Your skills are definitely transferable. You may feel more confident in a particular area, whether it's because it's an area of interest or you've had some experience in that area, but the skills are so transferable because we're all working under the same social work values, respect, integrity. So yeah, there's a lot of overlap and transferable skills.
And are you glad that you've worked in children's services? Are you glad that that's been your experience?
Yes, definitely. I love working within children's services, and there is so much fear when it comes to working in children's services. There's so much stigma attached when it comes to the media, but I love it. I see the rewards. I see how the changes that we make to families and how we really support families to create change for themselves, for their children. And we safeguard those children where those changes can't be made. So, it is definitely a challenging role, but one that I'd always encourage social workers to explore, come into and experience, because it's good. I enjoy it.
Yeah, and I'm an adult social worker, and the same. I've really enjoyed it, and I've had quite a varied career. I think, both in the same respect as yourself. Like it just, in social work, we're lucky to be in social work because it is so varied, and we have opportunities to really try different things and see what suits us, really. So well, thank you for talking to me, and I will put on the screen some of the links to your social medias that people can access to keep following you. So thank you.
Thank you.